The episode starts with a blimp smashes into a skyscraper high in the skies of Metropolis, throwing the pilot out of the cockpit and onto the streets below. Fortunately, Superman saves the pilot and prevents a steel beam from collapsing on a crowd of onlookers, just in time for Lois to rush into the scene and request an interview with Superman, who is not yet ready for an interview and instead excuses himself, stating that he still needs to repair the damaged blimp. Meanwhile, Kyle Nimbus and Roughhouse, two criminals, have obtained highly sophisticated weaponry, the same ones taken by Leslie Willis, and have utilized them to break onto Stryker's island. They quickly free their comrade, Savin McDougal, from her cell and present her with a unique sound-amplifying helmet, which she uses to aid their escape. Clark goes to the Daily Planet and runs into Lois, who is still upset over missing out on an interview with Superman. When they arrive at their office, they discover that Perry has assigned Steve Lombard, Cat Grant, and Ronnie True to investigate Superman and have stolen all of the evidence Clark, Lois, and Jimmy had acquired for their own inquiry. Lois sees this as a challenge to create a Superman tale before Steve, Cat, and Ronnie. Suddenly, a TV transmission from Bethany Snow announces the Stryker's island escape, and Clark feels this is a wonderful opportunity to divert Lois and Jimmy's attention away from their Superman narrative. Meanwhile, the Stryker's island criminals, now known as Intergang, come to their center of operations and abandon Jim to test out their newest weapon, a massive freezing cannon. Despite the fact that the weapon first fails, the Intergang decided to utilize it for their next crime. Clark, Lois, and Jimmy go to Stryker's island to speak with the warden about the escape. Lois admits that she took press credentials from Steve, Cat, and Ronnie, as Clark wonders how they'll obtain the interview. Clark is surprised that Lois would resort to stealing just to get a story, but Lois insists that they have no choice but to investigate the breakout or return to the Daily Planet to continue working on their Superman story, and Clark, not wanting to jeopardize his secret identity, agrees to her plan. Warden Ellis provides them with information on Intergang, a trio of small-time crooks who have been stealing from convenience shops. Ellis receives a phone call from the prison's gate guards, informing her that she would be visited by Daily Planet reporters. Clark, Lois, and Jimmy believe they've been detected and trying to flee, but they stumble to the location of the breakout, Savin's cell. There, Lois finds a letter written by Savin with timing scribble on it. As they flee the jail, Clark and Lois understand that Savin must have been plotting Intergang's most recent heist, a theft at the Metropolitan City Bank. Jimmy has also deduced that the timings written on Savin's notes must represent the moments when armored vehicles arrive at banks with cash transfers, with the next transfer taking place within the next 15 minutes. The teenage journalists hurry to the bank just as Intergang begins their heist. Clark wishes to seek assistance, while Lois and Jimmy try to get kidnapped in order to attract Superman's notice. Savin causes a sonic explosion with her new sonic helmet, while Roughhouse uses the freezing cannon to create a massive ice wall that isolates Clark from his pals. Clark seizes the opportunity while Lois and Jimmy are preoccupied to put on his uniform and hurry inside the bank. During the struggle, Superman faces Intergang, and Kyle tries to blast Superman with the freezing cannon, which fails once again. Roughhouse tries to repair the punch with the cannon's power source. A bizarre luminous crystal becomes dislodged and starts freezing everything in sight. As the ice continues to spread throughout the city, Lois and Jimmy try to evacuate as many people as they can, while Superman discovers a new ability, heat vision, and uses it to shatter the crystal, but not before the crystal shows him an army of robots. Slade Wilson apprehends Intergang as the ice melts, and an emergency crew tends to the wounded. As Lois and Jimmy search for Clark, Superman informs them that he is safe. He also promises to give Lois the interview she desires and transports her to the Daily Planet's rooftop to prevent Steve, Cat, and Ronnie from stealing her story. Superman explains that seeing Lois' bravery during the struggle with Intergang motivated him to grant her the interview. During the interview, Superman reveals that he doesn't know much about himself, such as his origins or the nature of his abilities, but he is convinced of one thing: he wants to serve the people of Metropolis. As Superman departs, Clark arrives on the rooftop and runs into Lois, who informs him that she has received his interview. When Clark asks what she thinks about Superman, Lois responds that Superman is a liar, much to Clark's surprise. Lois continues to accuse Superman of lying for avoiding her inquiries at the Daily Planet. Clark, attempting to conceal his secret identity, believes Superman is real in his desire to assist others, while Lois believes Clark is only portraying himself. Jimmy hands Lois a stack of magazines and newspaper stories concerning aliens, and Lois believes they can use them to search for Superman. At that point, Perry invites them to his office. Perry invites them to a reception at Ivo Tower to interview Anthony Ivo, CEO of Amazotech, as Metropolis' most eligible bachelor. Clark believes they can take this occasion to probe him about his alleged illegal activities, but Perry tells them not to. As Clark prepares for the celebration, he comes across a magazine story about a Kansas flying child. Clark removes the piece from the magazine and conceals it in his coat after realizing it is about him. When the three interns arrive at the party, Lois takes advantage of the chance to question the guests about their corruption, but the attendees consistently ignore her. While Jimmy is invited to photograph a millionaire's family, Anthony Ivo, the party's host, presents himself on stage and previews his next endeavor. Curtis, a member of Amazotech's board of directors, informs Ivo that the board will vote on whether or not Ivo should be removed from the firm since Amazotech has not made any recent profits and Ivo is bankrupt. Ivo claims that his next idea will be profitable, but Curtis is skeptical. Just before Ivo is ready to attack Curtis, Clark approaches him and, following Lois' lead, chooses to question him about the corruption allegations leveled against him. Unfortunately, this causes Ivo's bodyguards to kick Clark out of the party. Lois, inspired by Clark's bravery, slips Clark back into the party via a back door and offers to repair his ruined coat, confessing that she too has destroyed many clothing while pursuing stories. Clark observes Lois rejecting a phone call from her father, to which she responds that she and her father haven't talked much since her mother died. She never regarded him as someone she could trust, and she's never been able to speak about her troubles with anybody. Nonetheless, Clark patiently listens to her and claims that Lois has transformed his life for the better. Clark even attempts to expose his hidden identity for her, but she says that she despises being lied to, prompting Clark to stop himself at the last possible moment. They are startled to see a door leading to a hidden area with the same technology utilized by Intergang and Livewire. Ivo vents his displeasure with his technician Alex in that room and expresses his wish to test his newest product despite Alex's assertion that it is still a prototype. Ivo comes to the podium to present his idea, a suit of armor dubbed Parasite 1.0. According to Ivo, the residents of Metropolis live in perilous times. Metropolis was once the safest city in America, but it is now besieged by a major crime wave, and Superman cannot be trusted. Ivo claims that anybody may be their own Superman with his parasite costume. He tries to toss Curtis out of the building as a protest. Superman swiftly arrives to the tower, rescues Curtis, and requests that Ivo release the guests. But Ivo just instructs Alex to lock the chamber with an electromagnetic barrier. He attacks Superman with his suit, stating that the suit gives the user Superman-like strength, speed, and durability, and that if the suit is damaged, it can absorb and redirect kinetic energy. Ivo can absorb Superman's strikes and return them with much more power because to the suit. Lois and Jimmy penetrate Alex's control room in order to incapacitate Alex and remove the energy barrier that is imprisoning the visitors. Superman maintains his distance from Ivo, deflects his assaults, and lets his opponent exhaust himself. The suit malfunctions, leaving Ivo terribly deformed. While Ivo is being brought to the hospital, Clark brings Lois and Jimmy to Ivo's hidden storage room, only to discover that it has been completely empty. Lois consoles Clark and expresses her admiration for his determination to pursue his story. Later at the Daily Planet, Lois finishes uploading her piece to the newspaper's main server, only to uncover Jimmy's magazines and newspapers. She reorganizes her board with her new information and discovers the item Clark wore. She starts to ponder the notion that Clark and Superman are the same person after noticing how similar they seem. Jimmy is enthusiastically preparing for a camping trip with Clark and Lois to investigate Bigfoot reports at the Kent Olsen residence. He discovers that Clark has already departed for a jog, and when he checks his phone, he discovers that a video commentator has been mocking his Flamebird recordings. Jimmy attempts to call before leaving for work. Clark is preoccupied with his heroic responsibilities, while Lois continues her study into Superman. Jimmy meets Steve at the Daily Planet, who invites Jimmy to accompany him on a sports assignment. Lois, having arrived at her office, attempts to think of a method to convince Clark that he is Superman. Lois asks Clark if he has anything vital to tell her when he comes at the office, and Clark takes his own evidence board with him. He informs her that the technology utilized by various criminals around Metropolis had to be created by someone, which is why Clark has to find out who created them. To that end, Clark intends to utilize one of the Daily Planet's dispatch scanners to track down any time this technology is deployed. Lois proposes they seek Superman for aid because she wants Clark to tell her the truth, but Clark thinks Superman knows nothing. Lois suggests they should still seek for his aid, but Clark, not wanting Lois to learn his secret, just thanks Lois for her support in this project. Suddenly, the scanner detects many illegal activity on the streets, and Clark leaves the Daily Planet, claiming he just wanted to get some lunch. Jimmy, who is uneasy with Steve, sends messages to Clark and Lois, but they not respond. Steve expresses a desire to spend time with Jimmy since he sees a lot of himself in Jimmy. They both spend a lot of time alone, and Steve describes them as lone wolves or mavericks. Jimmy, unwilling to be compared to Steve, dismisses Steve's remarks and claims that he is extremely close to Clark and Lois, despite the fact that they do not take his views seriously. Steve asks Jimmy to videotape him while he attempts to refute yet another of Flamebird's conspiracy videos, much to Jimmy's surprise. Jimmy is astounded that Steve has been refuting his films as Steve is that Jimmy is Flamebird. Jimmy complains that Steve skipped work to film a video for his channel, but Steve responds that Jimmy and his buddies have regularly defied Perry's directives to do anything they want. Steve even informs Jimmy that Clark and Lois haven't spoken to him because they've been too preoccupied with their own problems. Steve wanted to spend time with Jimmy so he could learn that life changes and people move away, but Jimmy refuses to believe Clark and Lois would abandon him, so be prepared for his camping trip. While Lois attempts in vain to catch up with Superman, he deals with a number of situations around Metropolis. Lois eventually arrives to a location that is set to be assaulted by a criminal gang. Lois approaches Superman about Clark, but Superman claims to know nothing about him. Lois, desperate to see Clark and Superman together, binds herself to Superman until Clark comes. Suddenly, a criminal gang strikes a neighboring garage, using the identical technology Clark was looking for. Superman and Lois beat the villains by working together. The final surviving criminal, Rory, tries to assault Superman, but her gauntlets, made of the same technology, malfunction, forcing her to surrender. Rory explains that she and her group attempted to steal a vehicle because an unknown attacker, presumably Superman, was kidnapping individuals who had come into touch with the technology stolen by Livewire. Superman disputes such charges, but Rory claims that her group has already been abducted and that she will not be taken lightly. Her gauntlets reactivate, and she fires a torrent of fire towards Superman. While Rory flees, Superman protects Lois with his body. Superman escorts Lois back to the Daily Planet, believing she is in danger, while attempting to apprehend Rory, even breaking her restraints to secure her safety. Lois offers to accompany Superman because she believes he needs her, but Superman refuses, even when she refers to Superman as Clark. Superman comes upon Rory at a storage dock beside a freeway, but he is attacked by Rory. Agent Slade Wilson, who is outfitted in a black suit modified with technology, witnesses the battle. Wilson's senior commanders, an unidentified general and Amanda Waller, direct him to keep Superman at bay, even sending 2 robots to help him in battle. Wilson, who has already kidnapped Rory, confronts Superman with 2 superheated blades that may injure him, and Superman learns that the technology and weaponry he has seen belong to Wilson and the group for which he is working. They are also the ones that abduct criminals who utilize such technologies. Superman inquires as to why they are kidnapping people, but the general responds that he is the one protecting the Earth from Superman, instructing his robots to continue their onslaught. Superman destroys the robots and confronts Wilson, but the conflict breaks a bridge, putting bystanders in risk. Wilson prepares to blast Superman with an energy weapon while Superman is occupied defending bystanders, but the general orders him to stand down and leave, despite Waller's complaints. Seeing Superman saving bystanders has persuaded the general to leave Superman alone for the time being. Clark reunites with Lois, who notices his injuries after Superman fixes the bridge and returns to the Daily Planet. Lois begs Clark to be honest with her because she is concerned about him, but when he still refuses to communicate, she falls off a building, causing Clark to rescue her without putting on his costume. Clark and Superman are the same person, confirming Lois' suspicions. She is upset that Clark was not truthful about her, and Clark responds that he didn't believe her when she indicated she intended to disclose all of Superman's secrets. Lois quits their relationship after being hurt by Clark's deception. Meanwhile, Jimmy chooses to go on their camping trip alone after being saddened that Clark and Lois would not accompany him. Jimmy arrives in a jungle, but in the middle of the night, a mystery gorilla-like thing kidnaps him, and the episode ends with this.